Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Orange Chronicles, where I chronicle my reading for the week. And let's go ahead and jump right into what I finished this week. And first up is Before Reckoning: The Blood Rebellion by fellow booktuber Chance Dillon. I've been in a couple discussions with him, but this is his book and my fun little cover I made for him. This is a short story in his greater Mercy world, I believe is what he's calling it. He has a full-length novel coming out later this year, and I went ahead and read the short story that is free on his Patreon, and I had a really good time with it. It's, like I said, a short story, so it's hard to really give like a ranking for it or anything, but what I will say is it made me intrigued to read the rest of what he's got going on there. I thought it was cool. It has a good blend of like good writing with some like dark elements to it, and I don't know, it shows that there's obviously like a big expansive world that he has thought out here, but this is just like a little taste of it. So I enjoyed it, and I would recommend you going and checking it out if that sounds interesting to you. And then the next thing I finished this week is Starship Troopers by Robert Heinlein. This was a very interesting read for me. I ended up giving it a 3-star rating, and there are some like interesting ideas in here. I think this really shows some very strange, not strange, but it shows some very specific thoughts and beliefs that the author has about the world. There's a lot of stuff about the right of the military and the lack of guidance from the adults or people like, I don't want to say ruling society, but there's a really long example brought up of how in this science fiction futuristic world that there was a time when children were basically running amok to a scale that was unfathomable, right? Like you couldn't go outside at night because children were doing bad things. And there's this whole monologue in the book of like, you can't really blame the children for the circumstances their parents have put them in. There's an interesting thing to think about. I don't know if I necessarily agree with it. There's also some like references to like corporal punishment for children and like, is it good, is it bad? There's a lot of interesting things going on there. The first part of this book where you're dealing with the action sequences and like the military, the world and everything is really interesting here, but this is a very heavy-handed, like, these are my beliefs on the world kind of book. And I think that maybe hurt my enjoyment for it as the book went on and on and on. I think that, for me, as what I like as a reader, there's bits and pieces of it sprinkled in, and I think that there is some really interesting things that are in there, but just, I don't know, never really got all the way for me. So like I said, 3-star, I liked it. It's not going to be a new favorite. I'm not like blown away by it. I am now very interested to go ahead and watch the movie, which I know is extremely different from the book. So that is going to be something interesting. I don't know when I'll watch it. I still haven't even watched Misery yet from after I read that last year. So I'm not the best at getting around to watching movies, but it is something that I would like to watch. And that is actually the only 2 things I finished this week. Now we can go ahead and move on to what I started / will be continuing for the next week or so. So I did start The Blackest Heart by Brian Lee Durfee. This is the second book in the 5 Warrior Angels saga or trilogy, and the first book being The Forgetting Moon, my favorite fantasy book from last year. And I'm only about, what, 10, 11% of the way into that, so just kind of getting reacquainted with the world, kind of seeing where everybody is. There's some interesting new POVs that I'm really enjoying, but I've heard that there's like a crazy battle scene at some point in this book, and it's one of the best things that some people have read as far as like battle scenes go, so I'm very much looking forward to getting to that. And yeah, I fully expect for this to be one of my favorite books of the year, super high up there. So that's kind of where I am with that. I don't have too much to say other than if you have not read The 5 Warrior Angels, I highly recommend that you do, because it is very, very good, at least from what I have read so far. Next up, and this is actually a book that I forgot to mention last week because my copy was not over here on my shelf, and that is The Fugitive Prince, book 4 in the Wars of Light and Shadow series by Jane Orts. You can see I'm about, I don't know, what is that, 10-ish percent, 11, 12%? I think my Kindle tells me I'm at 12% when I'm reading it out of that, so we'll go with that. Not too much to say here other than I'm glad to be back in this world. The writing, beautiful as ever. I like the kind of plot that is being set up. We're kind of re-evaluating where a lot of our characters are in the world after what happened in the last book. This is technically the beginning of a new arc in the story, and this arc is 5 books long, so I think we're kind of going to be setting some pieces for that, and we'll follow through and see. I will say I want to hopefully put a little bit more effort into this because I don't have any next planned reads after The Blackest Heart. So if I finish The Blackest Heart this week and there's still a little bit of time here in January, all of my attention will go to this book, which is kind of a nice thing because I normally read this right before I go to bed, so I end up reading like, I don't know, 5 to 10 pages, and then I get too tired to keep going, and that's just how I end up reading physical books. So hopefully I can put in a good dent on that here at some point soon. And then the other thing I am actually in the middle of reading is this very short story by Susanna Clark. the Wood at Midwinter. I cannot say this title. This title, every time I try to say it, just breaks my brain. And I don't know, a couple pages into it, but the writing in here, or the words actually on the page, is interesting because it's illustrated, right? So like there's not always a whole lot of words on each page. So I actually plan on finishing this today. So by the time this video comes out, I'll probably have finished that and everything. So hopefully I'll like it, and I'll talk about it next week and give my full thoughts on it. Susanna Clarke is an author who I have heard about her other novels, Doctor Strange and Mr. Norrell and Piranesi. Both of those are books that I don't think I'll like. They just don't sound like things I will normally like, but I wanted to at least try her out as an author, and maybe at some point I'll check out one of those books. And I kind of lied. I don't have another novel planned for this month, but one thing that I do want to read is this. This is a Superman comic, Superman All Seasons. Nick from another BookTube channel did his top 10 comics of 2024, and this one was on it for him. And I'm a big Superman fan, as you can see, and this is actually some comics that I have not read, so I went ahead and bought this, and I will read this probably, I don't know if today, sometime this week. This is kind of the only other thing I'll read, but it's a comic, so it reads a little bit different than a novel, but hopefully I like it. It sounds like it's the kind of Superman story I like. Sometimes I enjoy when Superman isn't like fighting the end of the world, the universe is going to be destroyed if Superman can't like figure out a way to fix a problem. Sometimes I just like the more casual, like Superman's just like saving people and like just experiencing life in this strange world for him, and like trying to find his place and that kind of stuff. And that sounds like more of what this story is. Not that I don't like the other stuff, but sometimes it's nice to kind of have that change of pace. So I'm going to go ahead and check that out as well. Next up, let's talk about some manga. So I went ahead and read 4 chapters of Dragon Ball Super this week. It's so early, 4 chapters into this story. It's one of those funny things to like get back into it, see some of the retconning that happened, see some of the changes that happened. But because I've read all the way through and it's kind of like a continuation story, it's just nice for me to be back. I really don't know what the general sentiment is of the manga. I know when there's like a Dragon Ball Super movie that came out that I think the animation was maybe really bad and people dogged on it, but I don't know how people feel about like the actual story that happens here. I know a lot of people have some feelings about the power-ups in particular, and like, are they really necessary? All this kind of stuff, but we'll see. For me, if it's the same kind of silly, goofy time that Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z is, with like those hints of little series bits mixed in, that's kind of what I like from the series. I also really like the art and stuff normally, so if those kind of things stay true to what I'm used to, it's going to be something that I enjoy. And so hopefully, we'll see. But now we've got to talk about, and this is so hyperbolic to say because I've only read 5 chapters of Frennen Beyond Journey's End, and in these 5 chapters, I am already hooked. And like I said, this is a crazy thing to say after reading 5 chapters of anything. The first 3 are technically longer chapters, so you get a little bit more. But this could already be like a top manga for me if it stays on this trajectory, which is crazy to say. But I mean, this story in 5 chapters has made me feel more for the characters and the story than the 160 or so chapters I've read of One Piece. And I'm not here to dog on One Piece. I'm going to keep reading it at some point, but I think when I read something like this and it highlights like how quickly things can happen, how quickly I can feel for certain like characters, and like the journey and the story is, I don't know, just hitting me in a way that I'm really connecting with in this short of time. It makes me a little frustrated when I spend so much time in other stories before I get to anything. But I understand the idea of a slow burn and everything. So we'll see. I don't want to put down a series to put another one up, but I just have got to say Frennen has been an absolute revelation 5 chapters in, which I could come back next week and read 20 more chapters and be like, okay, it's not actually that good. But these first 5 chapters or so are just hitting me super hard. And so hopefully it stays on that path and it can become a new all-time favorite series for me. I know the anime was really popular. I think it only has 1 season. I think maybe even the manga is on a hiatus right now. But it is just kind of one of those things where it's just like, it's hitting me hard in just a few chapters. So I'm hoping it can kind of stay the course, especially when I'm missing out on some of the other big series that I love, like Vinland Saga. Hasn't been a new chapter in a while. Berserk, who really knows whatever is going to happen with the ending of that. I know technically it's been passed over, but we'll see what actually happens with Berserk. So we have some of these big series that like I want endings to, and we're supposed to get endings for, but we don't know. So maybe Frennen can kind of weasel its way in there and fill a gap that I'm feeling for some of my manga reading. Okay, and now quickly switching over to what I watched and played this week. Celebrity Jeopardy is back on. So me and my girlfriend love Celebrity Jeopardy. We always watch it, and that is something we will continue to watch. I am still working my way through Reba, which is such a funny thing. Early 2000s sitcom that I remember. I have like very early childhood memories of watching some of the earlier stuff from it. So now that it's on Netflix, I'm going through watching it all. It's been fun. It's silly. The tone of it is so different than a lot of like more modern stuff that I have watched that it's kind of nice. It's almost like it's like a time capsule, right? Like when you go back and watch a movie from the 70s, like that's a time capsule of that time. That's kind of what Reba is in the early 2000s and stuff. So it's been, an interesting thing. I have also watched the NFL. Rip to the Lions, I, that's what happens when you don't have a defense. And I know a lot of that has to do with injuries and stuff, but man, that sucks for them. It almost feels like maybe their window's over. Like, how many more times can they keep repeating this magic? They might lose both their coordinators. Like, they still have a talented roster, especially once they can get healthy. Like, obviously they lost their best defensive player in a meaningless game at the end, in the beginning of the season, and he'll be back for next year. But we'll see. Also, the Chiefs keep kind of getting away with it. They were the better team than the Texans still, but it's kind of one of those things where it's like they feel like they always are getting that one or two calls that really help keep a drive alive or something when they don't deserve it. And we'll see. Obviously, they're the big bad empire. They are the Patriots of this generation, right? So we'll see what happens. The Bills and Ravens are going to play tonight. That'll be a good game. Hopefully the Ravens lose. I'm a Steelers fan, so hate the Ravens more than anybody. And what's the other game? The Rams and Eagles. I think the Eagles probably take care of that one pretty easily. But then again, Matthew Stafford could get hot. I mean, we'll see. But that is kind of what's going on there. And I have played a little bit of Valorant this week. I don't play a whole lot of video games anymore, but me and some friends were playing that. So if you have ever played Valorant, tell me how much better you are than me, because my FPS skills have gone so far down from their peak. I can remember being okay at CSGO, and man, first-person shooters are just not for me anymore. But that is all of that. And so now let's move on to what happened on the channel this week and what is going to be happening this upcoming week. So firstly, this week I had my Win in Truth review. Very interesting reception to that video. I will say I'm positive on Win in Truth. If you're not positive on it, if you just want to like air your grievances and stuff on it, my video is probably not the one for you to watch, because like I said, I'm overly positive. I'm more positive than a lot of people seem to be. It's my third favorite Stormlight book. I get it if you don't like it. I get a lot of the complaints. I get all of that. I'm just saying, if those are the things you want to like harp on, there are other videos where I think you can go do that and have a better response to the video. I have a whole positive and negative section on the video if you are interested. It's all spoiler filled, or there's a little non-spoiler section, but it is mostly spoiler filled. But like I said, if you don't like it, I'm sorry you didn't like it. I wish you did. Or if you didn't want to like it, I'm glad you didn't like it. I don't know what to say with the Win in Truth stuff. It's been such an interesting reception. I've never had such a negative reaction to me being positive about a book. And so I don't really know what else to say other than I'm kind of glad that that video is done and past, and we can move on. Everyone can take a deep breath with Brandon Sanderson, and just remember, read what you want when you want. You don't have to read stuff you don't want to. It'll be fine. If it annoys you that people talk about it, I'm sorry. But yeah, that's kind of what I have to say about the Win in Truth stuff. So moving on, I was also on Beast Friends Forever. It was a live stream, and it was a great time talking with him. We've been in a couple chats. We were in a Berserk chat together and everything, and a lot of fun. I think we almost talked for 2 hours. We probably could have talked for longer if it wasn't getting so late. And like I said, great time. Would love to do it again. Definitely check that video out. We talk about all kinds of things. We talk about, I think we start with some comics. We talk about books. We talk about reading disabilities. We talk about all kinds of stuff. So highly recommend going ahead and checking that out. I'll have it linked somewhere in the description probably. And then upcoming on the channel this week, I think I'm going to do, a lot of people have been doing it right now, but it's the every book I read in 2024 ranked, but I don't think I want to rank everything. What I want to do is I think I'm going to do, these are all the books I read, which ones would I recommend other people read, just to make it a little bit different. I don't want to do the exact same video that everyone else is doing, but it's obviously I can recommend any book, right? Any book I have read, I can tell you reasons why to read it. So this is going to have to be like big, broad strokes of like, do I recommend it or not? So we'll see, maybe I'll make some people upset with that video as well. And then also on the 25th of January, I am going to be on Jake's channel over at Nerd Level Rising. I think, did we schedule that for 2 o'clock? I'll have to double check. He told me when it's scheduled, but I can't remember. But I'll definitely post something in the community tab when that is coming up so that you guys can come hang out, ask questions live, all that fun stuff. Looking forward to doing that one as well. But that has been my week. Kind of a busy week here. Normally, I feel like I don't do that much in a single week, but this is just one of those weeks where a lot happened. But that is all for me. Definitely let me know what you read, watched, played, any of that stuff down below in the comments. I'd love to chat with you down there. And remember, again, read what you want when you want. It's for fun. Have a good one.